Welcome to Fostering Godlike Sexuality at Home. Our goal here is to empower parents to teach their children to see sex in a godlike way.
My name is Brigham Elton. I'm a pornography and sexual addiction counselor who've helped thousands of people overcome even the appeal of pornography. And I'm hoping to get out in front of this and try to help parents to set up their homes to chase godlike sexuality from the beginning.
My name's Andrea, a mother of 4, and I'm learning alongside all you listeners and excited to have these discussions. Thanks for joining us. So today we are really excited to dive into the puberty experience. We want to help parents kind of unpack what their puberty experience was like, prepare them for what their kids' potential experience is going to be like, get some understanding of like what shapes that experience, and also like what kind of messages we as parents want to have as like our anchors when we go into teaching puberty.
Yeah, totally.
So, let's first talk about what shapes the puberty experience, because when I talked to several people over the last couple of weeks, like I'm hearing a variety of things in terms of what their puberty experience was like. Like I'm hearing some that were like, oh yeah, it was kind of unremarkable. Like it just happened and it felt normal and it didn't feel really fazed by it. And then I'm hearing others that were like, it was awkward and embarrassing and I felt alone, in puberty. And then others that were like, it was really positive because my mom and I really connected over sharing and learning about puberty.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's one thing I think that like I love that last comment, because like as much as like the realm of pornography has changed, like puberty, like some of the messages that people are getting and how prevalent they are has maybe changed a little bit, but like the puberty experience is actually pretty similar.
Yeah.
Still, like it's not that different now than it was when I was a kid, right? And like parents really can connect over that.
Yeah, I think
What
so.
like common threads did you notice of people who had like a neutral to positive puberty experience?
So one of the things that I think was across the board was they felt like they had information. Like they felt empowered with knowledge going into puberty, and they felt like they had somewhere to get more knowledge as they went along.
Yeah, I totally see a similar thing. Like these individuals who like have that advantage typically are either late bloomers, so they have knowledge because like they've seen their friends, right? Or I see a lot of that are like the younger siblings, because they saw their siblings go through it, right? And they felt like they had this prior knowledge, so that when stuff starts happening to their body or their voice cracks or they whatever, right? Like they're going, oh, this is normal. Like I'm growing up, and there's this kind of like acceptance / sometimes even excitement.
Yeah, like I've kind of joined the club.
Changes. Yeah. Yeah, about stinking time. Like I honestly, like I remember that a little bit for me. Like I was a late bloomer. And I remember being like, yes, like about time. Like I'm so happy about this. And a lot of it for me was athletic focus, where it was like, all right, I'm going to grow again, But like there is this kind of excitement that can come, especially when it's not like, oh no, what's happening to me?
Right. And that's where that information and having some knowledge ahead of time is key. So like what you're saying then here is if you have like an oldest child, or it's like a second child, but it's a different gender than the first child, right? Like they are going to need something extra in being prepared to walk through puberty.
Totally.
And I really think that like as parents, we get to provide that.
Yeah.
But I also realize that for some of us, like it feels a while ago, and we may need to like stop and think like, wait, what was puberty like for me?
Totally.
Right.
Totally. And like unpacking that is so helpful, right? Because like whatever your puberty experience is, it's most natural to pass that on.
Yeah.
Whether it was positive or negative or informative or not.
Yeah.
And so I think taking real stock of where you're at really does help, right?
Absolutely.
One thing I like to remind parents about this, like give information early, right? Is that like you really do validate your knowledge as a parent, right? Like if you tell your kids that like, hey, this is coming for you, like this is going to start happening to your body. And then when it starts to happen to their body, they're going to be like, oh, my mom or my dad gets me.
Yeah.
They get my body. I can go to them. I trust them. And like you've pre-opened that door. Now, is that door shut if you didn't do this? Like, no.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's still something that can be open and be like, oh yeah, hey, like I remember this happening to me.
Yeah.
But like this is actually a place where that pre-sharing and then like pre-informing And then actually sharing is actually really valuable.
So
right?
like sharing, you mean like telling the story of your experience.
Yes.
So there's like the hey, this is going to happen. And then there's the story of like, and when it happened to me, this is what it was like. And this is what I remember. And this is what I wish I would have known. This is what I'm glad I did know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like most of our puberty teaching kind of comes in 2 layers, right? Like we have this overall, hey, this is what's coming, be aware of it, kind of overall, like just like scan over it, bird's eye view, right? But then there is during the moments where like we're starting to experience this.
Yeah.
And like this is the moment to experience puberty again with your child.
Yeah.
You know, like it can be a very bonding thing because your child's puberty is most similar to their siblings, but the next is you.
Right.
You know?
Or their peers. And I think that maybe that's where oftentimes these oldest children sometimes land is like looking a lot to their peers, which is great and totally fine and normal. But also we want to balance that with like a wiser, more mature perspective on like, I've been there.
Yeah. And this is a great opportunity for you to like open this door to like sexual teaching, really. You know, like there's a lot of great moments for this, but like sometimes we miss that early one where their kids are fascinated by it, you know, and fascinated by birth and fascinated by where I came from. Like this puberty is another great option to like kind of begin talking about that part of the body and those feelings and those shifts that our body is going through.
Building some awe for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like if we're trying to send that message, one of the things I've been thinking a little bit lately is like how the word healthy has has much more of a positive tone, I think, than the word normal. Because a lot of things are happening that are normal, but not necessarily healthy. When a kid feels like, oh, this is healthy, that feels good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that lets them go like, I'm okay. You know, like a common thread through puberty is this like, I feel a little subconscious.
Yeah.
Right. And that fear can sometimes lead to a lack of processing, right? When it's like, oh no, what's wrong with me? Shut down.
I don't know what to think. Yeah.
And then we don't actually like process through and think about and then feel and then honestly kind of store this experience in our brain, right? And it becomes like puberty can become traumatic when there is so much of this like, oh no, what's going on with me? What are people thinking of me? Whatever, fear,
hiding.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so a way to combat that, right, is to help our kids to feel like, oh, this is healthy. Like that verbiage that you just talked about that like, oh yeah, this is what's going to come to your body and it's healthy, right?
Yeah.
If you can pre-hit it, or even when it does happen, you're just like, oh yeah, that's so normal. Like it's so healthy for that to be happening in your body, you know? And like I think I love that healthy over normal, but like using that verbiage can help a kid to go, oh, it's fine. Now I can think about it.
Yeah.
You know, because like the fear is similar to pornography exposure. The fear is that they don't think through it.
Yeah.
Right. And that they just are like, oh no, freeze. Right. As soon as that kid goes, oh, okay, I'm healthy, I can think through it.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked a little bit about kind of what makes that positive experience. We've talked about like that it's processed, right?
Yeah.
They've had a chance to think about it, usually because they have information ahead of time. Either they're taught well, like in detail. They don't feel afraid of getting that information. Totally. They've watched others go through it, or they have heard their parents' experiences. What do you feel like contributes to some of the negative experiences? I think you kind of mentioned one earlier, which was like whether you're an early bloomer or a late bloomer, kind of feeling, am I not normal again, right? Is a little bit unsettling.
Because that's where that question kind of comes down to no matter what. Like, am I not normal? And that can come from lack of information. That can come via like timing, right? That can come because you were, sometimes as parents, as an attempt to celebrate, can kind of like put you on a pedestal or off on your own. Like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's wearing a bra now. Or like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's starting to get his voice crack, you know? And it's just like, we, I think, are trying to celebrate, but it's someone who already feels really like self-conscious. When we separate them, they're just like, oh no, I'm separate from the group.
Yeah.
You know, and like this, like I'm
amplified.
Yeah, like what's going on with me is not typical. Like it can make that significantly worse.
Yeah. I'm just thinking as a parent, like I've totally done that. You know, like I remember with my oldest, I was just surprised when I noticed that he had armpit hair. Like it was summer, it was the first time in a bathing suit, and all of a sudden he had armpit hair, and I was not expecting it. I just remember being like, what? You have armpit hair now? You know?
Yeah.
And I was just responding in the moment and not thinking at all.
Yeah.
And I wish like I could go back, but you know, it's fine. We just keep moving forward. But it's true. If we can pause and think like, hey, have I been putting my kids in the spotlight in ways that maybe feel a little embarrassing, then that's going to potentially provide a little bit more of a negative experience.
Totally. Yeah. Because like these changes are new to them. And so like even kids who like are secure, like I'm a pretty secure human. Like I honestly pretty much always felt pretty confident. And like I still remember having these like as these changes came and were new, I was like really like aware of them and hyper aware, so that like if someone said something that made me feel a little bit odd or different, like I was like, whoa, you know? And so I think even kids who are typically kind of kids you can mess with and they seem pretty confident, you know, like I think you'd be surprised at how little confidence they have
in those moments,
in those body change moments.
Yeah, for sure.
And so like to me, like one of the most consistent negative things I see is like someone who feels different, you know, and then again, why they feel different. I think I want to go through these a little bit deeper, right? One of these is like early or late bloomers. Like it's really common for someone to feel different if they're first to hit the changes, right? And that could even be first in the family. So like we talked about like the oldest
child versus
probably the
youngest.
oldest boy and the oldest girl need a little bit more.
Or if there's a big gap. Right. Like, so for me, my sister that was older than me was 7 years older than me.
Yeah.
So I felt like a new, like an oldest child.
Totally.
Going through puberty. But my parents were also in this stage of like, you know, I was the middle child. And so there wasn't as much, you know, being taught. And that actually led to me like trying to learn about puberty from my peers and from magazines, which is fine, but also felt separating from my parents. So all of a sudden this puberty experience kind of felt like this is just mine and I don't really connect with my family over it. And so it felt, there was a little bit of shame around it and also kind of deviance. It felt
kind of a missed opportunity for a parent to like, hey, like let's re-anchor here.
Yeah.
You know?
Like let's reconnect in this new phase of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Because all the connection that's awesome that you have with your young kids, you know, when they're just like so pumped and they scream when you get home and they want to give you giant hugs, you know, like you're resetting all that.
Yeah.
And you get a chance to reconnect with this person who now sees themselves independent of you.
Yeah.
And like puberty is a great opportunity that as that actually like that split starts to happen of them becoming independent of you, still being connected over that distance.
Yeah, but like we're connected in a new way.
Yeah.
We're connected as you're independent, you're forming values, you're having your own changes and becoming an adult, but we still have this relationship.
Yeah, and so like I love that like almost you're an early bloomer no matter, or a late bloomer no matter, or pretty much an early bloomer. You're an early bloomer no matter what. If you're like a first child or a first male or first female, or if there's a giant break, you know. And so like these are people who their puberty experience is a little bit harder, and so as a parent they're a person that like we want to reach to a little bit more. The awesome thing is like as parents do reach there, then that gets passed down to other kids, right? Where like the oldest kid is like, oh yeah I remember telling my brother like, dude, this is gonna happen to you, and dad told me all about it, and like it happened to him too. It's so normal. And like we're almost getting this dad connection just because like my dad made an effort with me to like warn me that those things are coming
through you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. So we kind of like gone through like these common threads for positive experiences, and then like these common threads for negative experiences, like being an early or late bloomer, where you are in the family, lack of information, or if you've been put on the spot and it's kind of been this moment of embarrassment in the past. I want to talk also about a few other things that might shape the puberty experience, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is personality, right? Yeah. Some kids are more private. Some kids are more outgoing and curious and interested and prone to like just feeling fine about life.
Yeah.
And parenting styles are different, like parental attitudes, like the attitude we bring when we do teach, even if we're sharing that information and we're connecting.
Yeah.
It's just going to kind of create its own thing. So each kid kind of has their own unique experience.
Yeah. Like, and I think there's some level of control we have there as parents, you know, like, do I want it to be this like heavy, like this really matters, you know? Or do I want it to be this like celebratory, like, oh my gosh, like this is so awesome for you.
Yeah.
You're becoming an adult. Do I like, I guess like you get to attach to it certain energy, right? And that like, we talk about this over and over and over again, but like emotion, like all communication is felt first, then heard, you know? And so like, one thing I really recommend for parents whenever they do any formal conversation is have a prepper with your partner and like be landed at like, okay, what do we want to attach to this?
What is our message that we want to bring?
Yeah. And then like, I think that actually matters more in your follow-up than actually in your moment.
Okay.
You know, like when I come back later and I'm like, hey, dude, I just want you to know, like, I really appreciate your participation in our conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, and it's casual and exciting. There it is, you know, or this like sit down and we're looking eye to eye and I'm like, hey, I just thought about our conversation yesterday and I just like wanted to tell you this one more thing. Right now, I've made that a little heavier versus this like light, like, oh, here it is, you know, and like, there's some advantages to each of those, you know, but like you as a parent get to connect this information to an emotional state.
Yeah.
You know?
And decide like if this is the message we want to get, how do we get there based on our baggage, what we bring and our experiences and what our kid is like.
Now, I think as you prepare to teach your kids about sex, I think being aware of their culture, and by sex, I don't really mean sex. As you prepare to teach your kids about puberty, I think it's important that we're aware of their culture, right? And like, what are their puberty influences? Yeah. So like my kids who we are in like a homeschool group that has a very wide range dynamic, right? And so like they're getting puberty experience quite early and late. And it's like, it's going to come kind of in layers, not all at once. Like versus like when you're in like a grade and you only really hang out with people your age, puberty becomes kind of this big thing that happens at once versus like some people are experiencing it, some people aren't. That kind of goes on all the time. So like that's different culturally, right? What happens like like your experience with animals, you know, like animals is another consistent thing that's like, okay, do I see this happening? Cousins, you know, like it's like, where is my kid seeing puberty, you know? Yeah. And like, I think noticing that matters. So like my daughter she's like the oldest cousin on both sides, kind of. We have like my mom is remarried. And so like he has older kids. Yeah, there's some step cousins, but like she is connecting with some of the step people. So like my dad got remarried and adopted her daughter. And so like we have like, she's 12 or something like that. And she's like just starting to like bud and get like, be more mature. Right. But my daughter sees herself as her friend. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so like, I'm aware that that's her culture. That like for her, she is aware of what's happening to her aunt. Yeah. You know? And so like, even though it's really early, like my daughter is like 7, like, and she's not going to bud probably for a while. Like this is a great opportunity for me to just be like, hey, have you noticed what's happening for Quinn? Yeah. Like her body is starting to become like a woman. Yeah. And it really is like preparing to one day have kids. Yeah. You know? And like, that's it. I'm not going to teach the details of all this, but just like
acknowledge the observation that's taking place, acknowledge like the pattern that she's seeing.
Yes. Yeah. Because then I've now enabled processing so that my daughter's not going, what's going on? She's going, oh yeah, cool. And like, that's probably the depth at which she's going to think about it. Yeah. Right. Versus when she's that age and it starts happening to her.
There's going to be a lot more questions.
That depth is not the same. Yeah. Yeah. It can't just be like her body's preparing to become like a mother.
Yeah. Which I did when I was talking to one mom, like she was like, I don't know what your experience is like with kids maturation program, but like when I went with my kids, it was so limited in its information. Like it is not enough. It's mostly, the school maturation class, you know, like, as parents, I just really, really want to say like, do not count on maturation to be your puberty teacher. Yeah. It's a great way for you to like enter in and be like, hey, we're all learning about puberty together. Yeah. But then like there's so much more detail that you're going to want to teach kids at that age.
Totally. And again, you want to be the anchor.
Yeah.
Like you don't want your school. Yeah. Right. Like when I talk to kids about anatomy, I always ask them like, where do you primarily learn about anatomy? And all of them say to me, school, you know? And like, I don't get to control my kids, but man, do I hope they don't say school. I hope they be like my dad, you know, or my mom, you know? And like, you're right. I think it's a good door opener, but it is a little dangerous to rely on it as your education.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can we talk a little bit about these like self-conscious puberty moments and what does that look like? How does that like manifest for a kid?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think like honestly, when I think through my own experience, like I think what stands out to me is the freeze moments, you know, because like our body attaches them with like fear and a little bit of like, sometimes I call it small T trauma, you know, of just this like, oh my gosh, if someone's going to notice this about me, you know, and they really can be almost anything, you know, sadly, they're a little more common for women.
Yeah.
You know, because there is kind of this like, there's a natural celebration to men's bodies changing. That doesn't really happen like with like sexually. Yeah. But like culturally with like height, voice change, like a beard, becoming stronger. Yeah. Like all those things are like, all right, you're becoming a man and it's kind of like good for you, you know, versus where I think kind of culturally sometimes with women, it can be this like, oh, now you have this thing hidden. Yeah. You know, that it's like you need to hide that. Yeah. You need to take care of this. And it needs to be like secretive. Like if your tampon came out of your purse, like, what? Like you need to hide this from us. You know, like hide your shame.
We don't want to have to think about what you're going through.
Okay, as we kind of transfer from this, like overall what shapes the puberty experience, I want to kind of let our listeners know what's coming, right? Like our next episode, the focus is really going to be on like, okay, here are some major moments, right? These are some ways that you can prepare for and handle some of these major moments. Can you give us some of these examples of what the major moments would be?
Like, how do you discuss and teach about the menstrual cycle?
Yeah.
Or like, what are we going to teach our boys about erections and ejaculation?
Yeah.
Those would be some like major milestones. I think we're also going to hit kind of an overview of like the layers of puberty, how to teach these kind of
what comes when.
Yeah. How to do pre-teaching and then like during puberty teaching and then like late puberty, more arousal, relationship focused changes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But today, like as we kind of wrap this, like what shapes the puberty experience, I think this is a great opportunity to go like, okay, as a parent, teach puberty in my home, what do I want our overall message to be? Like, what do I want to be my anchor that I can go back to when I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say. Like I can come back here, right? Yeah. My individual anchor has not changed from teaching sex the body.
Awesome.
Like my individual anchor is like, your body is amazing. The things that it does is unbelievable. Like I am so proud of what your body can and will be able to do.
That's so
you know, and like everything will come back to that. So like when they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm like, yeah, honestly, that's so hard. But isn't it amazing that like here's your body that is now preparing to do this, you know? Or isn't it amazing that like, that like these hormones turn on in your body and tell your body it's time for you to shift, you know, instead of just being under the wing of a parent, but to become a little more independent. Like, I just think that's so awesome. And so like, that will be the anchor that I will keep using is this, like when I'm in doubt, I can return to, man, like what your body can do is so amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
Maybe can you share like maybe your anchors / like anchors that you think could be awesome?
Some other anchors I think that could be awesome would be like, I'm excited for you to have these changes. And like, I believe that when and how they happen is exactly the way that they're meant to be.
Yeah,
it's healthy and it's taking you where God wants you to be in life. Yeah.
Love it. Another one I've heard is this sometimes can be a little uncomfortable. Like they kind of acknowledge the uncomfortable, but I like believe in you and like this is going to help you become, and this parent was saying, more like God, which I love. Like this can be hard, but this process is you becoming like God and you're going to learn your body in new ways.
I love that. Like acknowledging the challenge. That was the other thing I was thinking, like acknowledging that challenge and putting it in context for like, it's part of your growth. It's part of what propels your growth.
Yeah. Another one I've seen is that like, we've all gone through this, you know, like this is an us experience, you know, like I remember this for me, your mom remembers this for her, your friends are going through this too. Like this is a shared experience that feels isolated,
but it's connecting,
but it's, it's, this is an us thing. And I want to be part of it.
I love that.
You know?
Awesome.
Yeah. We're like, honestly, like is a part of want to be part of this. I read this book, and it talked about like fathers being there for their daughters. And as someone who has 4 daughters, like this is a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Is like, I'm going to be a dad who carries a tampon.
Yeah.
Like I will have a tampon. If you ever need a tampon, I've got a tampon and a pad, and I'm ready, awesome. You know? And because I want, and it's part of this is an us experience.
Yeah.
Like this is a we thing. And like, I don't expect you to be the one that always has a tampon. Like
totally.
If I drove, we've got stuff in my truck.
That's cool.
You know, and even though 90% of the time I'm the only one in my truck, I still want it to be a we experience.
Cool.
You know, and I don't want my wife to leave me out of it. Honestly, it's the truth. I'm like, I want to be part of this as the dad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that kind of goes to like, as we prepare for helping parents teach puberty, we're also going to be like doing this same idea of like cross-gender teaching. Like we want moms and dads both talking about male and female puberty, like what is happening in the body, and then sharing their experiences of what it was like for them. And even like sharing those embarrassing moments and lightening a little bit that like, you're not the only one that is having these moments of self-consciousness, moments of embarrassment along the way.
This girl, like might have almost been a year ago now, was telling me about her experience with puberty. And she said that one of the things that helped her the most is when her dad told her that, like, honestly, like, I didn't really realize that girls were budding until I was, like, almost a sophomore. And then I was like, oh, my gosh, girls have boobs, you know? And he's like, I didn't, like when girls were 11 and 12 and wearing a training bar or whatever, I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
And that, like, she was like, because honestly, she's sitting there thinking, what do these boys think of me?
Everybody sees my training bra.
Yeah. You know? And to like hear her dad's experience witnessing the female experience was even awesome for her, you know? And so I love that. Like both parents be involved. And even if all you have to share is this is what I remember from my experience, this is what I remember watching from women, you know? Like that's great. That's a great amount of information and openness in your home.
And I really do think like a little bit of conversation with a friend or with your partner, and then like some time to think about it, you know, a few days to just be thinking about like, what was my experience like, will really open up some awesome moments that you'll want to take to your teaching.
Yeah, totally. As you teach puberty in your home, like one of the best things you can do is a prepper that's just like an overview of like, here are some things that happen in puberty. This is what's coming. This is kind of when and what, with very minimal information, but just like, this is what's coming. So that when it comes, it's not a shock. Yeah. Right. And then there is this like, okay, this moment is happening. This is how you deal with it. Right. Whether it's happening for them or for someone they know well.
Peers,
right. Like this is a great time to actually teach the details. So this like puberty talk is a talk of layers, not a talk of like a moment.
Of a moment, yeah.
Right. And I think knowing that as a parent really matters. That like the first time you talk about this, you don't need to know it all. Like the goal is just to kind of teach, this is going to happen.
That there's changes that are going to be happening.
This is kind of what's going to happen. Like keep your eye out for a couple of these, you know? And like this is so healthy. And it's part of the progression.
Yeah.
Right?
And when we do that pre-teaching, again, they're processing it and they will be more inclined to ask you questions along the way. And you'll be like, oh yeah, I told him about that when we did this general overview. Yeah. But here I'm telling him again because they are noticing it, or they're like, hey, was there something else that I learned about this? I can't remember. And it's because it's then it's easier for them to talk about.
Totally. And so my advice to like to parents is like start talking with your partner now and prepare to have some overview stuff going on, you know? Yeah. Because like kids are ready for it. Even if it doesn't matter at what stage, the overview is helpful. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so like, even if your kid is 20, like the overview can still be helpful, you know? And so like, that's where I would be looking to converse about with my partner.
Cool. Thanks for joining us for this discussion today. We hope it was valuable for you and your families. Our website, trueconnectionsrecovery.com, has a bunch of resources that you can access to get support from us.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways we're trying to help individuals, right? Whether it's through like individual recovery, like partner support, even like parental support, like how can I set my home up as a place for success?
Yep. We will be putting like technology management resources, other educational tools, or like workshops that might be up and coming in the area.
Just trying to provide ways for like families to feel supported, right? And so all of that you can find there on that website.
The more that this gets shared and like as you talk about it with others that you know, like the discussions kind of flow, and we can all grow in this area together.
Yeah, we really succeed as a community.
Yep.
Thank you.